No on R, no on Q, Wiener Farrell, shame on you. No on R, no on Q, Wiener Farrell, shame on you. No. We're going to bring up our next speaker, Brother Damien.
Thanks, Bill. Okay, so it's time to humor the strange guy in a brown dress for a little while. Can we do about 2 minutes of history? Yes. In about 1207, a man who was a young son of a wealthy merchant in the Italian town of Assisi went into the town square and took off every stitch of his clothing and gave everything he owned back to his father. And he spent the rest of his life in absolute poverty and taking care of the poor. In fact, they say that when he met someone who was poor that had worse clothes on than he did, he would swap with them because he couldn't stand the idea of not doing anything he could to better the lives of the poor. Fast forward to 1776, just a few blocks from here, some men who followed St. Francis of Assisi established a mission. They didn't always do everything right, but they did name that mission after the man that they followed, St. Francis of Assisi. And around it grew up a town that we know that bears the name of St. Francis. Ever since then, Franciscans have lived in this town and have tried to do their best to look after the marginalized and the homeless. In 1971, some men moved into a house on Dolores Street, where I live now. We've done our best to be part of that tradition. Fast forward to today, we're standing here because of a proposition coming up on our ballot to take away the only shelter and the only possessions that our most vulnerable citizens and most vulnerable neighbors have. So the strange guy in a brown dress has a message today from St. Francis. He says, San Francisco, that he wants his name back. If we are going to be the city of St. Francis and live so counter to everything that St. Francis was, that's not the city that I want to live in. I was right across the street there about 5 months ago. And one of the little things that I do is to walk around the streets to visit with some of our unsheltered neighbors, to provide them with little comforts like clean socks, hygiene items, snacks. And I visited with some people sitting on the sidewalk over there. And as I stood up, a young man, not dressed as if he were homeless, walked past and began literally cussing me out on the street. He said to me, pardon my French, "What the fuck do you think you're doing? Why are you encouraging them?" Now, I know this is going to be surprising, but he didn't stay around to have a logical conversation about this, just like the House of Cards didn't stay around.
It's like real life.
He buzzed right on, but if he'd stayed to have a conversation, the question I wanted to ask him was, encouraging them to do what? To survive? Well then, yes, I'm going to go on encouraging them until all of us in this city get the will to do something useful. Prop Q is worse than a house of cards. It's worse than a joke. It's absolutely cruel. Prop Q continues to take away tent cities without providing any other housing. Do you know that there are about 800 people on the list to get a shelter bed in this city every single day? 900 now? There is no place for these people to go. Telling the city deciding to get rid of these tent cities. By the way, we've correctly identified that we're in a crisis. Am I right? We are in a crisis. These tent cities represent a crisis. What we've not correctly identified is that we can make this crisis go away by not seeing it anymore. That doesn't work. That works just as well as identifying that the ship is going down. Quick, get everybody over the rails, and oh, by the way, maybe later on we'll find you some lifeboats. That's Prop Q.
Yeah, no kidding. Right.
Vote no. It is not the city of St. Francis. It is not the way that we have chosen to live in the past. We have always led the way, and it's time for us to lead the way again and find real solutions, not Prop Q and not Prop R, and not continuing to push the problems out of sight so we simply don't have to see the suffering without doing anything about it. Peace to you.
like that. A friar that cuss. No on R, no on Q. Wiener, Pharaoh, shame on you. Let him hear you over there. No on R, no on Q. Wiener, Pharaoh, shame on you. No on R, no on Q.